Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss Julie, and I'm your host today. This is your teacher, Miss Quinn. Today, we will learn more about the Viking life.
Today's lesson is titled Viking Life. Although you have heard about many ferocious Viking warriors who traveled and raided, most men of the Viking age were farmers and fishermen too. Some had livestock that were raised to be eaten or to help with farm work. By the end of today's lesson, we will discuss the everyday life of the Viking people. We will describe Bjorn's family and their traits, motivations, or feelings. And we'll make personal connections to the Viking life. Let's get started, boys and girls. Let's begin by first discussing the meaning of some important vocabulary words that we will reference throughout this lesson. Our first word is earthen. Boys and girls, say earthen.
Earthen.
Earthen is made of clay, dirt, or mud. Sarah liked the feel of the cool earthen floor underneath her bare feet. Oh, and boys and girls, these words are a little complex, so we were unable to come up with a hand motion for all of them, but if you can come up with a motion at home, feel free to do so. Okay, back to it. Our next word is imposing. Say imposing, boys and girls.
Imposing.
Imposing is something or someone that is impressive, grand, or magnificent.
Like,
yes.
Ooh, it's beautiful.
The imposing Empire State Building was so tall that we could not take our eyes off it. Our next word is planks. Say planks, boys and girls.
Planks.
Planks are thick wooden boards or strips. We was grateful for the wooden planks laid across the street because they helped keep his shoes from getting muddy. All right. The next word is raucous. Say raucous.
Raucous.
Raucous is to be wild, loud, and disorderly, like this dog you see here. The dog's raucous barking kept half of the neighborhood awake during the night. And our last word is unison. Say unison.
Unison.
Unison is the act of doing something the same way at the same time, like singing in the choir.
You know what, Miss Quinn? I bet the Vikings rowed the boats using the oars on the long ships in unison.
I bet they did. I bet they did. Great example. All right, boys and girls. Now, we have learned so much about the Vikings already, so I want you to think about and reflect upon some of the things you've learned and share. And I think Miss Julie is going to help us out.
Yes, ma'am. Let's pull up that KWL chart and we'll be ready to go. We've learned so much. You are so right, Miss Quinn.
We have.
And you know what? One of the main things I remember from yesterday's lesson was Bjorn. He learned a lot from his father being a blacksmith.
He did. He did.
I do remember
Great
that.
example.
Okay. And I also remember, because it was hard to imagine that boys as young as 13 years old had as many jobs as they did. They were very young doing those many jobs, being farmers, craftsmen, fishermen, traders, shipbuilders, and explorers.
Yes, those young kids had a lot of work to do. And you know what? Quite different than our children today, because they're not sitting at home playing Fortnite.
That's right.
They were working.
They're not learning any Fortnite dances right now, are they?
They're not. Okay, so now that we are about to explore a new text and learn more about the Vikings, is there anything, boys and girls, that you want to know or that you're wondering about, still wondering about? What about you, Miss Julie?
I bet the boys and girls are thinking just like me, and they want to know, dig a little bit deeper into the life of these young boys and of these Vikings. So what life was really like?
I think so too. I kind of want to know that too.
And, you know, why did they have to farm?
No,
You know, not everybody has farms, but a lot of the Vikings did,
they did. And they don't have a Kroger and a Walmart like.
like we do. Can't run down the road anymore. I'm going to add that to our chart too, Miss Quinn.
Anything else, Miss Julie?
Why did they have to travel to so many different countries?
I know.
A lot of traveling on those ships.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll find out. Want to add that to our KWL chart?
Yes, ma'am. There it is.
All right, boys and girls, we're going to listen carefully, so put your listening ears on, to hear more about Bjorn's life as a young Norse boy, and to learn more about how the people farmed during the Viking Age. Y'all ready? Viking life. Listen carefully. As we sat in the semi-darkness, my grandmother began to serve us the evening meal. She ladled hare stew into our bowls from the large cauldron that hung above the hearth. As she did this, my mother busied herself lighting the small lamps that were strategically placed around our wooden house. I took a bite of the stew. The meat was tender, and the garlic and herb-flavored gravy dribbled from my chin. In addition to the stew, my grandmother had baked barley bread. It had just been removed from the hot ashes in the bottom of the fire, and everything tasted delicious. I had a large family, and we all lived together in one long rectangular house. Almost all aspects of family life took place in the central hall of our home. Though my mother had a separate room for spinning and weaving at the back of the house, as I devoured my dinner, I looked around at people I loved. I wanted to keep their faces imprinted in my memory forever. Soon I would be leaving them and sailing far away to land in the midst of the Western Ocean, the land of Iceland, known for its strange fires, boiling streams, and ice-covered mountains. The journey there would be treacherous, and there were reports that the oceans were filled with gigantic whales and even sea monsters. I knew what the journey to Iceland would be like because my father had made it himself when he was my age. I had listened to the saga of his voyage in a cargo ship with his brothers, Vali and Tuni. His brothers had stayed in Iceland and became successful farmers, and my father had returned to Norway and married my mother. I did not want to make that dangerous journey and leave my loved ones, but I knew I had to leave with the other young Norse to escape the conflict.
Question time.
Okay, boys and girls, we heard that Bjorn had to travel to Iceland. So we're going to identify Iceland on our globe just to see how far Bjorn had to travel from Norway to Iceland. So here's Iceland here, and this is Norway and Sweden.
Tilt it this way just a little bit. There we go.
And this is how far. And you see all of the blue, that indicates all the water, so that's why they needed those long ships. That's Iceland right there. Okay. As we ate, the adults sat on the raised beds that served both as seats and as places to sleep. The children sat cross-legged on the earthen floor. My grandparents, Bjork and Afi, my younger brothers, Arnsten and Carl, and my sister Kita began to chat about their day. My favorite hen did not lay any eggs today, said Kita, clearly disappointed. Perhaps she will lay twice as many eggs tomorrow, replied Grandfather Afi. Question time.
Back-to-back questions there.
Okay, boys and girls, I hope you've been listening. Do you think the people of the Viking Age had beds like we have today? Miss Julie,
Oh, sorry, fell
would
asleep.
you like to share what you think the boys and girls are responding?
Yes, ma'am, Miss Quinn. I don't think they had beds like we do today. I don't think they have those nice, comfy mattresses like we did. But you know what? They did have a spot to lay, and they used animal furs to cover up,
Yeah.
like our comforters.
I think so too. And the text referenced that,
Yes,
stated that. Very good. Boys and girls, I hope that you said something similar to Miss Julie. Let's continue. It was Kita's job to tend to the chickens. All of the animals were kept in pens behind our house. Each day, Kita watered and fed the chickens and collected the eggs. Arnstein was in charge of caring for our 5 goats. He fed them and milked them, and he liked to play chase with them too. We also had 3 cows. It was Carl's job to care for them, but Mother and Kita milked them and churned the sweet-tasting milk until it turned into butter. My closest friend in the whole world was my cousin Tolly. Tolly and I had many adventures together. Thankfully, Tolly would be traveling to Iceland with me. At least there was that. Hey, Bjorn, do you want to go down to the harbor to see if the men have finished loading the long ships for our journey? I'll race you, Tolly exclaimed. For several seconds, we stared at each other, unblinking and eyeing the doorway. There weren't any windows in our house. The small opening in the thatched roof allowed only a small amount of the smoke from the fire to escape, and hardly any light from the sun to enter. Despite the permanent smoky haze in the house, I could see that Tolly was contemplating running to the doorway. He was determined to get a head start on me. Suddenly, in perfect unison, we both jumped up and sprinted toward the doorway. Tolly made it out first, but he slipped in a puddle. I leapt in the air and jumped clear over him. I took the lead, sprinting forward as fast as I could. Outside, the sun had set, and many stars, as well as a full moon, were already visible in the evening sky. A few of the dirt roads in our town were covered with planks of wood. This allowed wagons loaded with goods and supplies to be moved about our town more easily. However, many of the streets were simply dirt tracks, and now, because of the rain, they were a series of mud baths. It wasn't long before I slipped and fell too. Immediately, Tolly was upon me with a handful of mud. He threw it at me, and I responded by pushing him into a deep, muddy puddle. Before long, we was wrestling in the muddy streets. I often found myself in situations like this when Tolly was with me. I sometimes thought that Tolly's behavior was influenced by trickster giant Loki, who, despite his bad behavior, had been invited to live with the Viking gods in Asgard. The sound of the raucous laughter disturbed our neighbor, Ern the carpenter. As he and his family were preparing to sleep for the night, he came to his doorway and ordered us to be quiet. We immediately did what he asked and ran toward the harbor. Question time. Okay, boys and girls, I hope you all have been listening because I have another question for you. What was Asgard? You heard me mention Asgard. What was Asgard? Think about it. Think about what you heard in the read aloud. Miss Julie?
Asgard was the home of the gods.
It was the home of the gods. Very good. The Vikings had what? Did they have one god or many gods? We talked about that in our previous lesson.
They had many gods.
Many gods. The harbor was a magical place. Despite our fear of night spirits, we loved to go there in the evening and watch the ocean waves as they lapped back and forth against the imposing longships. Our vessels were tied up and docked there for the night too. There were fishing boats, rowboats, and ferries used for carrying passengers across the rivers and the fjords. because because most people in my homeland lived on or near the coast or near a river or fjord. Boats of various sizes and shapes were our main form of transportation. Because we were master shipbuilders, our ships were known far and wide for their design, speed, and ability to move easily through the waters. In a matter of days, Tolly and I would be traveling on board a cargo ship called a NAR. Many of the supplies we needed for the journey had already been loaded aboard the vessel. They were stowed in the center of the ship and were covered with animal hide to protect them from the rain and the powerful waves. That's why we had to take off our hats. We would also be taking supplies of iron, tar, barley, and cloth to trade in the farmstead of Reykjavik. Once in Iceland, the cargo ship would be reloaded with much needed food supplies, and then it would return as swiftly as it could to our homeland. Bjorn, look, Tolly whispered suddenly. It looks like there are some people on board that longship over there. Do you see the torchlight? I have an idea. Let's pretend we are spies and sneaking up on them, he continued, pointing at the boat. Okay, I whispered, not at all sure that it was such a good idea, but not surprised that Tolly had already lost interest in our cargo ship. Follow me to the harbor, Bjorn. Stay right behind me. Okay, let's go, Tolly commanded. Tolly inched forward, moving silently. I followed him and moved quietly too. I was determined to stay as close to him as possible. We both peered into the growing darkness, all the while moving closer to the flickering light on the longship. Question time. Okay, boys and girls, let's see if you've been listening, okay? What do you think will happen next? What do you think? They really didn't tell us, but based upon what you've heard, what do you think Tolly and Bjorn?
Well, you know what, Miss Quinn? The boys and girls told me what they think. And you know, that Tolly, he's always up to something.
He is.
He's always up to something. You know what? Just like the boys and girls said, I think they're about to witness something going on with the Viking warriors. We really think that, Miss Quinn.
I think so too. Boys and girls, I think your predictions are right. We'll see though. All right. You heard a lot at the beginning of the story about Bjorn's home. Can you all provide me with some adjectives to describe Bjorn's home? What was his home like?
A little different from our home, Miss Quinn.
Yes.
And I bet it's different from the boys and girls' home
I bet too.
that they live in today.
You want to share some
Yeah,
adjectives to
you
describe?
know, I remember it talking about it was rectangular in shape. Didn't have the same floors we have today. The earthen floors.
The earthen floors.
Yes,
Yep.
made of the clay and the dirt. I don't think anybody today has that type of floors at home. Remember it being dark, especially if the fire from the hearth wasn't going strong, smoky and very crowded. There was a lot of people eating that meal in Bjorn's home.
And they mentioned they all were in this hallway.
Yes.
Can you imagine at our home all of us being cramped in the hallway?
There'd be a lot of fighting going on.
Wow. Major differences than with us and the Vikings.
For sure.
Why did Bjorn's family raise livestock or animals? I think that's a given, boys and girls. Why did they raise livestock or animals?
Of course, Miss Quinn, for food.
For food.
For food.
That's a given. And what type of livestock, real quickly, because I know you all got this, what type of livestock did they keep?
I think they would say chickens.
Chickens, yeah.
And goats.
Goats.
And cows.
Yeah.
They had to have the milk to make that sweet butter.
You're right. Who else in Bjorn's family traveled to Iceland, and what did they do?
Iceland, yeah. I remember that.
Who else went before? That's how Bjorn knew what the journey would be like. Who else traveled there before?
Yeah, Bjorn's father and his father's brother.
His uncles.
His uncle. They traveled to Iceland. And
what did they do?
they stayed there and they became successful farmers.
They did. I remember hearing that in the read aloud. They did. So far, Bjorn and his father have been the main characters. But today, another main character was introduced. Who was it? I know you all know who that person was.
That Tolly, he loved to get into some trouble.
Tolly, you're absolutely correct, boys and girls. That mischievous Tolly. You're absolutely correct. And they traveled to where? Iceland. Very good, boys and girls. Bjorn describes the longships as imposing. Remember, imposing is something impressive, grand, or magnificent. Miss Julie, do you think those longships were imposing?
Ooh-wee, absolutely. Just the sight of them,
Ooh,
very imposing.
I think so too. Okay, boys and girls, I enjoyed that read aloud. So now let's have some fun with some word work. Our word for today is imposing. Say the word imposing.
Imposing.
Imposing means impressive, grand, or magnificent. During his visit to New York City, Jack could not help but stare in awe at the imposing Statue of Liberty that stood tall in the sky. Have you ever seen something that was imposing? What was it? Be sure to use imposing in your sentence. Miss Julie, you want to share your sentence?
Yes, ma'am. I remember seeing something that was imposing. It just took my breath away. The bride's new wedding gown was imposing because of all the beautiful diamonds that sparkled.
Oh, I bet that was magnificent.
Took my breath away.
Oh my, great example, Julie. All right, boys and girls, let's play a making choices game with our word imposing. I'm going to show you a picture that includes a person or a thing. And if that picture is something that's imposing, show me a thumbs up. If it is not imposing, thumbs down. Y'all ready?
Miss Quinn, can we put some sounds with it too?
Of course
like
we
ding,
can.
Ding, 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 or
Yes, let's,
okay. I like sounds.
All right, let's get ready, boys and girls. Remember, our word is imposing. You see that beautiful diamond?
Ooh, takes my breath away.
Okay, that beautiful diamond. Let me go back so you all can see it. Okay.
Beautiful diamond.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right, let's get started. All right, so here you see this blue chair. Imposing or not imposing? Not imposing.
I bet they
down.
did a thumbs down, Miss Quinn. Nothing
Thumbs
special
down.
about that chair.
No. All right, these beautiful diamond rings. Is that imposing or not imposing?
Ding, 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 ding. Thumbs up, Miss Quinn.
Okay, just a plain stop sign. Imposing or not imposing? Thumbs down. All right, this beautiful car, sports car.
We got to go back. I know we hit a bump there. Let's do that stop sign.
Okay, let's go back, okay? Was that stop sign thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs down. Now, let's get back to this sports car. Is that impressive, imposing, or what?
Ding, 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 ding,
Thumbs up. Very good. All right, so Miss Julie, we've heard so much. What are some things that you learned from today's lesson?
You know, Miss Quinn, I learned that the Viking people farmed for food in order to survive.
Okay.
And I also learned that the children had jobs to do, like to work and take care of the animals. And Bjorn and Tali traveled to Iceland on the cargo ship to bring back goods and supplies they needed.
Great job. You learned so much, Miss Julie.
Boys and girls, thank you for joining us today. All rights and credits from this lesson belong to Core Knowledge Language Arts. We would like to thank them for publicly sharing these materials.
Boys and girls, share what you have learned today. Tell someone at home everything you learned about the Vikings. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.